I fell for my boyfriend's dad. Then I found out he's a Korean Mafia boss. The glass didn't shatter, but the sound of it hitting the table was enough to silence the entire room. Ava froze. Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the table as the laughter around her slowly died down. Daniel was still smiling, still leaning back in his chair like nothing had happened, like what he'd just said didn't matter. "Come on," he added casually, swirling his drink. "I'm just being honest. It's not like she doesn't know." A few people chuckled again, quieter this time. Ava didn't. Her chest felt tight, but her face stayed calm, controlled, because she had learned that reacting only made it worse. She lifted her chin slightly, meeting his gaze. "I know exactly what I'm worth," she said quietly. Daniel smirked. "Then you should also know this isn't your world." That one landed harder. Not because it was louder, but because it was meant to. Ava felt every eye on her now, waiting, watching, judging. And just when it felt like the moment might stretch too far, that sound came again. A glass. Placed down. Slow. Deliberate. Final. The room went still. Not awkward still. Not confused still. But controlled. Like everyone suddenly remembered where they were. And who else was in the room. Ava's eyes shifted slightly. And that's when she saw him. Standing. Kong Jun, Daniel's father. The man no one talked about. The man no one questioned. The man Daniel always avoided mentioning. He didn't look angry. Didn't raise his voice. Didn't rush. He simply stood. And somehow, that was enough to change everything. He adjusted his cuffs slightly. Then began to walk forward. Each step quiet. Measured. Certain. Ava's breath slowed, because she didn't know what was about to happen. But she knew one thing. This moment was no longer Daniel's. And just as Kong stopped a few feet away, the scene cuts back to where it all began. Ava never planned to fall for someone like Daniel Kang. It just happened. She met him on a normal day. Nothing dramatic. No grand entrance. Just a cafe in Seoul, a spilled drink, and a conversation that lasted longer than expected. "You're not from here, are you?" Daniel had asked, smiling as he handed her napkins. Ava laughed softly. "Is it that obvious?" "A little," he said, "but not in a bad way." That was the thing about him. He made things feel easy, comfortable, different. Daniel wasn't like the other men she had met in Korea. He carried himself differently, spoke differently. There was something slightly Western about him. And later she understood why. "My mom was American," he told her one evening. They were sitting across from each other at a quiet restaurant, candlelight flickering between them. "I grew up in the States," he continued. "Didn't come back here until after she passed." Ava's expression softened. "I'm sorry." Daniel shrugged lightly, but there was something behind his eyes. "It's fine. That was a long time ago. But it still matters." He looked at her then, really looked, and for a moment, he didn't joke, didn't deflect. "Yeah," he said quietly, "it does." That was the moment Ava felt it, that connection, that understanding, because she knew what it felt like to exist between worlds too. Not fully accepted, not fully seen. And somehow, they found each other in that space. Things moved quickly after that. Dates turned into routines. Routines turned into something deeper. Daniel showed her a side of life she hadn't experienced before. High-end restaurants, private events, exclusive spaces. And, at first, it felt like a dream. "You deserve this," he would say, watching her reaction to everything. And she believed him, because for the first time, she felt chosen. But slowly, things started to change. Not all at once. Not enough to notice immediately. Just small things. Little corrections. "You should wear something more subtle next time," he said one night. Ava paused. "What's wrong with this?" "Nothing," Daniel replied quickly. "It just doesn't really fit the setting." She nodded. "Let it go. Another time. You don't have to explain everything like that," he said, cutting her off mid-conversation with his friends. Ava blinked. I was just answering. I know, he smiled. Just keep it simple. They laughed. She laughed too, even though she didn't fully understand why. Then came the jokes. The small ones. The ones that didn't sound like insults, but felt like them. You're still learning, he'd say. Or, you'll get used to how things work here. Each time, said lightly, easily, like it didn't mean anything. But over time, it started to. Ava noticed it most when they were around other people. The way Daniel spoke about her. Not with her. About her. She's not from here, so she doesn't really know yet. I'm helping her adjust, and people would nod, smile, sometimes laugh. And Ava would sit there, smiling too, even when it didn't feel right. One night, she finally said something. Why do you talk about me like that? Daniel looked at her, confused. Like what? Like I don't understand anything. He sighed softly. Ava, you're overthinking it. I'm not. You are, he said, leaning back. I'm just being honest. You're new to this environment. I'm not new to being respected. That made him pause. Just for a second. Then he smiled again. Relax. Don't make it a big deal. And just like that, the conversation ended. But the feeling didn't. Because something had shifted. And Ava couldn't ignore it anymore. Still, she stayed. Because she believed in what they had. Because she thought it could go back to how it was. Because she hadn't seen the full picture yet. She hadn't met his father. And she didn't realize that everything she was experiencing was just the beginning. If you're already feeling where this is going, make sure you like the video and subscribe because this story only gets more intense from here. The first time Ava felt truly out of place, she didn't say anything. She just smiled, nodded, played along. Because that's what she had been doing lately, adjusting, adapting, trying to fit into a space that never quite made room for her. It was another dinner. Another one of Daniel's gatherings. Same faces. Same polished environment. Same quiet judgment. Ava sat beside him, posture straight, hands resting calmly in her lap as the conversation flowed around her in fast Korean. She understood most of it, but not all. And Daniel knew that, which made what happened next feel intentional. She's still working on her Korean, Daniel said suddenly, cutting into the conversation with a small laugh. A few people turned toward her. Oh, really? One of the women said, smiling politely but not kindly. Ava opened her mouth to respond. I can understand. Daniel cut her off again. It's not just the language, he added. Cultural things too. She doesn't always catch them. There it was again. That tone. That quiet dismissal wrapped in a joke. Ava felt the heat rise slightly in her chest. But she didn't react. Didn't correct him. Didn't challenge it. She just smiled. I'm learning, she said simply. The table nodded. Conversation moved on. But something stayed with her. Because Daniel didn't look at her after he said it. He didn't check. Didn't care. Later that night, when they were alone, she brought it up again. Why do you do that? She asked, leaning against the counter in his apartment. Daniel glanced at her briefly. Do what? Talk about me like I'm not there. He sighed. Not annoyed. Just dismissive. Ava, it's not that serious. It is to me. He walked past her, grabbing a glass. You're taking it the wrong way. How am I supposed to take it? He poured himself a drink before answering. As honesty. Ava frowned. Honesty doesn't have to sound like disrespect. Daniel turned to face her then. But it's still the truth. That word again. Truth. Like it gave him permission. Ava shook her head slightly. I don't need you to explain me to people. I'm not explaining you, he said. I'm helping you. I didn't ask for that. He took a sip. Maybe you should have. Silence. That one sat between them. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Ava looked at him for a long second. Then turned away. Because she already knew. This conversation wasn't going anywhere. It didn't stop there. If anything, it became more frequent. More obvious. Daniel started correcting her in smaller ways too. The way she greeted people, the way she responded in conversations, even the way she laughed. Too loud, he said once, leaning closer. People notice. Ava blinked. They're supposed to. It's a conversation. Not like that, he replied. Just tone it down a bit. She stared at him, trying to understand if he was serious.
He was.
So she nodded. Again, let it go. But each time she adjusted, she felt herself shrinking. Just a little. Just enough to notice. One afternoon they were at a boutique. Daniel had insisted on picking something out for her. This suits you better, he said, holding up a dress. Ava glanced at it. It was beautiful, but it wasn't her. I like what I'm wearing, she said. Daniel smiled. You do. But this fits the image more. What image? Our image. That word again.
Our.
But it didn't feel shared. It felt controlled. Ava hesitated, then took the dress. Not because she agreed, but because she didn't want to argue again. The real shift came when she met his friends more often. At first, they were polite. Distant but polite. Then, the comments started.
Subtle.
Carefully placed. She's different, one of them said, glancing at Ava over a glass of wine. Daniel chuckled. That's one way to put it. Another added, it must be interesting adjusting. Ava smiled. It's not that different. The woman tilted her head slightly. No? I imagine it's quite a change. Ava held her gaze. Not as much as you think. Daniel laughed lightly. She's still figuring that out. There it was again. Ava felt it this time.
Clear. Direct.
Not hidden. She turned to him. Can you not speak for me? The table went quiet. Daniel raised an eyebrow. I wasn't. You were. A pause. Then he leaned closer, voice lower. Don't do this here. Ava's chest tightened. Do what? Speak. Make it uncomfortable. Her eyes narrowed slightly. It's already uncomfortable. That tension lingered. Longer than usual. But eventually, like always, it was brushed aside. Ignored. Later that night, Ava stood alone on the balcony. The city lights stretched out in front of her.
Bright. Alive. But distant.
She wrapped her arms lightly around herself. Not because she was cold, but because something didn't feel right anymore. She thought about how it started, how easy it felt, how natural. And now, every interaction felt measured, careful, controlled. She heard the door slide open behind her. Daniel stepped out. You're still thinking about earlier? He asked. Ava didn't turn. Yes.
He sighed.
You need to stop holding on to things. I need you to stop doing them. Silence. Then, that's just how things work here. Ava turned slowly.
No, she said.
That's how you work. That hit. She saw it in his expression.
Brief.
Sharp. Then gone. He shrugged. If you don't like it, maybe you're not ready for this. That word again. Ready. Like she was the problem. Like she needed to change. Ava looked at him. Really looked this time. And for the first time, she didn't feel confused. She felt clear. But she didn't walk away. Not yet. Because something still held her there. Maybe hope. Maybe attachment. Maybe the version of him she met at the beginning. But deep down, something had already started breaking. She just didn't know it yet. And somewhere else in that same city, a man sat in silence, listening, watching, waiting. Because while Ava was trying to understand Daniel, someone else had already understood everything. And he hadn't said a word.
Yet.
The first time Ava heard his name, it wasn't from Daniel. It was from someone else. And the way they said it made her pause. Kong Jun will be attending. The room had gone quiet for just a second. Not long enough for anyone to question it, but long enough for Ava to notice. She looked around the table. The same people. The same polished smiles. But something had shifted. Subtle. Controlled.
Real.
Daniel didn't react. At least, not openly. He just took a sip of his drink like it didn't matter. But Ava saw it. The slight tension in his jaw. The way his fingers tightened briefly around the glass. "Who's Kong Jae-hyun?" she asked. The question slipped out naturally, but the response wasn't. Silence. Then, Daniel set his glass down slowly. "You don't need to worry about him." That was it. No explanation. No detail. Just dismissal. Ava frowned slightly. "I didn't say I was worried. I just asked who he is." Daniel leaned back. "Someone important. That doesn't tell me anything. It's not supposed to." There it was again. That wall. That controlled distance he kept whenever the topic got too close to something real. Ava studied him. "Is he your father?" Another pause. Longer this time. Then, "Yes." The answer came quieter. Less confident. Ava blinked. "You've never mentioned him." "I don't talk about him." "Why not?" Daniel exhaled slowly. Because it felt like she wasn't letting it go. Because she wasn't. "Because there's nothing to talk about," he said. "That doesn't make sense." "It does to me." Ava leaned forward slightly. "Daniel." I said drop it.
The tone changed.
Sharp. Final. The table had gone quiet again. Not because they were listening, but because they always were. Ava sat back slowly, her chest tight, because that reaction wasn't normal, not for a simple question. And that told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't just a father. This was something else. Something deeper. Something Daniel didn't want her near. After that night, Ava started noticing things she hadn't before. The way staff reacted when certain names were mentioned. The way conversations shifted. The way people lowered their voices. It wasn't obvious, but it was there. And every time, it pointed back to one name. Kong Jae-hyun. One evening, Ava arrived early at Daniel's place. He had given her the code, told her to let herself in. "Make yourself comfortable," he said.
So she did.
The house was quiet. Too quiet. Not empty, but controlled. Like everything had a place. A purpose. Ava stepped further inside, her eyes moving across the room. Minimalist design. Sharp lines. Nothing unnecessary. She walked toward the living area, then stopped. Because something felt off. She couldn't explain it, but it was there. That subtle awareness. Like she wasn't alone. Ava. Her name. Spoken calmly. From behind her. She turned quickly. And saw him. Kong Jae-hyun. Standing a few feet away. Watching her. Still. Silent. Present. For a second, she forgot how to breathe. Because nothing about him felt normal. Not the way he stood. Not the way he looked at her. Not the way the entire space seemed to adjust around him. He wasn't loud. Wasn't aggressive. But he didn't need to be. His presence did everything for him. "You must be Daniel's guest," he said. His voice was low. Measured. Controlled. Ava straightened slightly. "Yes, I'm Ava." A pause. He didn't move. Didn't look away. Just studied her. Not in a way that felt invasive, but in a way that felt intentional. Like he was reading something. Understanding something. Before saying anything else.
"Sit," he said.
Not a command, but not a suggestion either. Ava hesitated, then walked toward the chair. Saturday.
Carefully.
Because for the first time, she felt unsure. Not of herself, but of the situation. Kong remained standing for a moment longer, then slowly took a seat across from her. The distance between them wasn't far, but it felt like it mattered. "You've been seeing Daniel for some time," he said. Ava nodded. "Yes." "And how do you find him?" The question was simple, but it didn't feel casual. Ava hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "He's complicated." A faint shift in his expression. Not quite a smile, but something close. That's one way to describe him. A brief silence passed. Then he asked, "And you?" Ava blinked. "Me? How do you find yourself in his world?" That question caught her off guard, because no one had asked her that before. Not like this. Not directly.
Ava thought about it.
About everything. Then answered honestly. I'm still figuring that out. Kong nodded slowly. That's expected. A pause. Then, but don't lose your position while you do. Ava frowned slightly. My position? He held her gaze. Your sense of self. That landed. Different from anything Daniel had ever said. Because it wasn't about changing, or adjusting, or fitting in. It was about staying the same. Ava felt something shift inside her. Just slightly. Daniel says I need to adapt, she said. Kong didn't react immediately. Then, adaptation and submission are not the same. Silence. Ava sat still. Because that felt important. More important than she could explain. Before she could respond, the door opened. Daniel walked in. His steps slowed immediately when he saw them. Ava noticed it. That moment. That shift. The same confidence he carried everywhere else.
Gone.
Replaced with something tighter. Controlled. You're here early, Daniel said, his voice neutral. Ava nodded. I didn't know your father was here. Daniel's eyes flicked briefly to Kong. Then back to her. I told you not to worry about him. Kong stood slowly. No, he said calmly. You told her not to ask. The tension in the room changed instantly. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not what I meant. It rarely is, Kong replied. No emotion. No aggression. Just truth. And somehow, that made it heavier. Ava looked between them. Because now, she saw it clearly. This wasn't just distance.
This was conflict.
Unresolved. Unspoken.
Real.
I'll leave you two to talk, Kong said, adjusting his sleeve slightly. Then, he walked past Daniel. Without another word. The room felt different the moment he left. Lighter. But not better. Daniel exhaled sharply. You shouldn't be talking to him like that. Ava frowned. Like what? Answering questions. Getting comfortable. He asked me something. I responded. Daniel shook his head. You don't understand how this works. Then explain it to me. I can't. Or you won't. Silence. Daniel looked away. And that told her everything. Because for the first time, Ava realized something. Daniel didn't control everything. Not here. Not in this world. And the person who did was the one he refused to talk about. Kong Jae-hyun. And somehow, Ava had just stepped directly into his attention. Without even trying. And deep down, she felt it. That quiet shift. That something had just changed. And there was no going back. After that day, something changed. Not loudly. Not in a way anyone else could point out. But Ava felt it. In the way Daniel spoke. In the way he watched her. In the way he avoided certain conversations. Especially when it came to his father. The next few days were different. Daniel was more controlled. Less relaxed. More aware. Like he was trying to regain something he felt slipping. And Ava noticed. Because now, she was paying attention too. They were at another dinner. Another group. Another table filled with polished smiles and quiet judgment. But this time, Ava didn't shrink. She didn't wait to be spoken for. When someone asked her a question, she answered. Fully. Confidently. Without looking at Daniel first. And that alone shifted the energy. She speaks Korean well, one of the men said, slightly surprised. Ava smiled. Thank you. Daniel let out a small laugh. She's been practicing. Ava turned her head slightly. I've been speaking for a while. The table went quiet. Not tense, but aware. Daniel's smile didn't drop.
But his eyes changed.
Just slightly. That was the first time she corrected him publicly. And she didn't apologize for it. Later that night, it came up.
Of course it did.
You didn't have to say that, Daniel said as they stepped into his apartment. Ava slipped off her shoes calmly. Say what? That comment. About your Korean. It wasn't a comment. It was a correction. Daniel exhaled. You made it awkward. No, she replied. You did. He turned to face her. I was helping the conversation. You were speaking for me again. That's not what I was doing. It is, she said firmly. And I'm not going to keep letting it happen. Silence. Daniel stared at her. Longer this time, like he was trying to figure something out. Ever since you met him, he said slowly. Ava frowned. Met who? You know who. She held his gaze. Your father? Daniel's jaw tightened. You're different. No, Ava said calmly. I'm just not ignoring things anymore. That hit. Because it was true. And Daniel knew it. You don't understand what you're doing, he said. Then explain it to me. I can't. Or you won't. That same question. Again. And again. He had no answer. The next time Ava saw Kong, it wasn't planned. And it wasn't in a group setting. It was quiet. Unexpected. She had been invited to the estate again. Daniel wasn't there yet. And this time, she wasn't surprised to see him. Kong stood near the window, looking out over the city, hands behind his back.
Still. Composed.
He didn't turn immediately. You came back, he said. Ava stepped further inside. Yes. A pause. Then, I wasn't sure if I should. Now he turned. Slowly. Eyes meeting hers. And yet you did. Ava nodded slightly. I had questions. Kong walked toward her. Not close enough to invade her space, but close enough to hold presence. And you believe I have answers? I think you have honesty. That made him pause. Just slightly. Those are not always the same thing, he said. Ava tilted her head. Then I'll take whichever one you're willing to give. Silence. Then, what do you want to know? He asked. Ava didn't hesitate. Why does Daniel act like that?
Direct. Clear.
No hesitation. Kong studied her. Not surprised. Not defensive. Just observant. Because he was never taught restraint, he said. Ava blinked. That's it. That's enough. She frowned slightly. He wasn't always like this. Kong nodded.
No.
He wasn't. Ava stepped closer. Then what changed? A pause. Longer this time. Then, he grew up without structure, Kong said. And when he was brought into it, he rejected it. Ava processed that. He resents you. Yes. The answer came, without hesitation. Why? Kong didn't respond immediately, because that question wasn't simple. He believes control is power, Kong said finally. And it's not.
No.
Ava's brows pulled together. Then what is? Kong held her gaze. Discipline. That word landed differently, because it explained everything. Daniel lacked it, and it showed. In the way he spoke, the way he treated people, the way he treated her. Ava exhaled softly. That makes sense. A brief silence passed. Then Kong asked, And you? Ava looked at him. What about me? Why do you stay? That question hit deeper than she expected, because she didn't have a clean answer. I don't know, she admitted. Comfort.
Kong asked.
Maybe. Attachment. Maybe. Hope. Ava didn't answer that one, because that was the truth. And they both knew it. Kong nodded once, then said quietly, Hope is often misplaced. Ava looked down briefly, then back up. I'm starting to realize that. Another pause. Then, you corrected him, Kong said. Ava blinked. At dinner. You noticed that? I notice everything. That didn't surprise her. You didn't seem surprised, she said. I wasn't. Why? Kang's expression didn't change. Because it was necessary. That simple. That clear. And somehow, that gave her more confidence than anything Daniel had said in weeks. The door opened behind them. Daniel walked in. And stopped. The moment he saw them together, the tension returned. Immediate. Sharp. You're here, he said. But his eyes were on Kong. Not Ava. I was invited. Ava replied calmly. Daniel's gaze shifted to her. Then back. You could have waited for me. I didn't need to. Silence. Kong stepped back slightly. Not leaving. Just observing. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. This is exactly what I was talking about. Ava frowned.
What?
You getting too comfortable here. Ava's expression hardened slightly. I'm not uncomfortable. That's the problem. Silence.
Thick.
Unavoidable. Ava looked at him. Really looked this time. And for the first time, she didn't feel unsure. She felt done. Not fully. Not completely. But close. Very close. You don't get to decide where I'm comfortable, she said. Daniel let out a short laugh. I think I do. No, Kong said. Both of them turned. He hadn't raised his voice, but it carried.
Clear.
Final. You don't. The room stilled. Again. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond, because this time, he couldn't, and Ava saw it.
Clearly.
For the first time, Daniel wasn't in control, and he knew it, which meant something else was coming. Something bigger. Something neither of them could stop. And Ava could feel it. That shift. That breaking point. It was close now. Very close. The tension didn't disappear after that. It followed them. Quietly. Constantly. Like something waiting to happen. The days leading up to the event felt different. Daniel didn't argue as much. Didn't correct her as openly. But that didn't mean things were better. It meant he was holding something in. And Ava could feel it. In the way he watched her. In the way he chose his words more carefully. Like he was waiting for the right moment. Wear the black dress, he said one evening, standing by the door. Ava looked up from where she sat. The one from last week? Yes. I was thinking of wearing something else. Daniel shook his head. That one works better. Ava held his gaze. For who? A pause. Then, for the room. There it was again. Not about her. About perception. Image.
Control.
Ava stood slowly. I'll wear what I want. Daniel's expression tightened. This isn't the time to start making statements. I'm not making a statement. I'm making a choice. Silence. Then he exhaled. Sharp. Just don't embarrass me. That word again. Embarrass. Like her existence was something that needed to be managed. Ava didn't respond, because she was done explaining herself. The night of the event arrived. The estate was already alive with people. Cars lined the entrance. Security tighter than usual. Inside, everything was polished. Perfect. Controlled. The kind of place where every movement mattered. Every word carried weight. Ava stepped in beside Daniel. And immediately, she felt it.
Eyes.
Watching. Measuring. Judging. Same as before. But this time, she didn't shrink. She walked forward. Steady. Confident. Wearing what she chose. Not what he picked. And that alone shifted something. Daniel noticed it too. He didn't say anything, but his jaw tightened. The conversation started quickly. Groups forming. Glasses clinking. Low laughter filling the room. Ava stayed beside him at first. Listening. Observing. Then someone spoke to her. And she responded. Naturally.
Clearly.
Without hesitation. You've been here for a while? One of the guests asked. Yes, Ava said. Long enough to understand how things work. A slight smile followed.
Not forced.
Not unsure.
Real.
The woman nodded slowly. Interesting. Daniel stepped in. She's still adjusting. Ava turned her head.
Come.
But I'm not confused. Silence. A few people exchanged glances. Daniel smiled again. Tighter this time. Of course. But the control was slipping. Just slightly. The night moved on. But the tension built. Small moments. Small shifts. Each one adding pressure. Until
it broke.
They were standing near the center of the room now. More people around. More attention. More weight. Daniel had been drinking. Not heavily, but enough. Enough to lose the restraint he barely had. Someone made a comment.
Light.
Careless. And how are you finding things here? Amanda asked Ava. Ava opened her mouth, but Daniel answered first. She's learning.
Ava didn't look at him this time.
She looked at the man. I'm not learning. I'm observing. The difference was subtle, but it mattered. The man raised an eyebrow slightly. Is that so? Ava nodded. Yes. Daniel laughed.
Short.
Dismissive. Let's not pretend, he said, louder now. Ava's eyes shifted to him, slowly,
Carefully.
because she knew this was it, the moment. You don't belong here, he continued. The room quieted, just a little, enough to feel it. Ava didn't react, didn't interrupt. She let him finish. Not in this world, he added. Not in this space. A few people chuckled. Uncomfortable, but present. Daniel looked around, confident,
Certain.
because this was his world, his environment, his control. Then he looked back at her.
Let's be honest, he said.
And that was when it happened. The glass touched the table.
Soft.
Controlled, but loud enough to cut through everything. Silence fell.
Complete.
Immediate. Daniel stopped, mid-sentence. Ava didn't move, because she already knew. She felt it.
Before she saw it.
Kong stood, from across the room.
Slowly.
Deliberately.
Every movement measured.
Every step controlled. No rush. No hesitation. Just presence. The crowd shifted without meaning to. Space opening. Attention locking. And suddenly, this wasn't Daniel's moment anymore. Kong walked forward, stopping just a few feet away. Close enough. Clear enough. Daniel let out a small laugh, trying to recover. It's not that serious. You've said enough. Kang's voice was low,
Calm.
but final. The room held its breath. Daniel's smile faltered, just slightly. It's just a conversation. No, Kong said. It's a pattern. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Ava stood still, because she knew this wasn't just about her anymore. Kang's eyes shifted briefly.
To her.
Then back. You speak without discipline, he said to Daniel. Daniel scoffed lightly. And you think this is discipline? I know it is. The difference in tone made it clear. This wasn't an argument. This was judgment. Daniel's jaw tightened. You're overreacting. No, Kong replied. I'm correcting. That word landed.
Sharp. Clean.
Daniel stepped forward slightly. You don't get to do that in front of everyone. Kong didn't move. I do. Silence. Because everyone knew.
He did.
Ava felt it. The shift. The reversal. Everything Daniel had built in this space. Slipping. Right in front of her. And for the first time, he couldn't control it. Couldn't redirect it. Couldn't hide it. Kong turned slightly.
Facing the room now.
Then back to Ava. You remained composed, he said. A pause. When others would not. Ava didn't respond. Because she didn't know how to. Not yet. Not in this moment. Then Kong looked back at Daniel. And you, he said quietly, have shown me enough. That line changed everything. Because it wasn't just correction anymore. It was conclusion. And Daniel felt it. You're not serious, he said. But his voice wasn't as confident. Kong didn't answer. Not yet. Because what came next wouldn't be spoken lightly. And everyone in that room knew it. This wasn't over. Not even close. The real moment was just beginning. And no one was ready for what came next. No one moved. No one spoke. The room stayed frozen, like everyone understood that whatever came next would change everything. Daniel let out a small breath. You're taking this too far, he said, trying to steady his voice. It's not that serious. Kong didn't look at him immediately. Instead, he reached for the table, picked up the glass, set it aside.
Carefully.
Like clearing space. Then, he spoke. It became serious the moment you forgot who you were speaking to. Silence. Daniel's jaw tightened. And who is that? He shot back. Because last time I checked, This is my life. My choices. Kang's eyes lifted slowly, and when they met Daniel's, everything in the room felt heavier. No, he said. It isn't. That landed. Not loud. Not aggressive. But final. Daniel laughed, but it didn't sound right. So, what? You're going to embarrass me now? In front of everyone. Kong tilted his head slightly. You've already done that yourself. A few people shifted. Uncomfortable. Because the truth wasn't hidden anymore. It was out.
Clear. Sharp.
Unavoidable. Daniel stepped forward. This is about control, isn't it? He said. You've always needed it. Kong didn't react. Control without discipline is chaos, he replied calmly. And that's what you've shown tonight. Daniel shook his head. You don't get to judge me like this. I don't need permission. That ended it. Right there. Because there was nothing left to argue. Nothing left to defend. Kong turned slightly. And for the first time, he addressed the room. My decisions have always been based on one thing, he said. Who is capable of carrying what I built? A pause. Then, I've been observing. That word echoed. Because now, it made sense. Every silence. Every glance. Every moment he said nothing. It wasn't an action. It was evaluation. Daniel frowned. Observing what? Kong looked at him. You.
A beat.
And her. His gaze shifted to Ava. The entire room followed. Ava felt it. The attention. The weight. But she didn't move. Didn't step back. Didn't shrink. Not anymore. Kong stepped toward the table beside him. Reached into a folder that had been sitting there. Untouched.
Until now.
He pulled out a document. Set it down. Flat. Then slowly, he slid it across the table. Not toward Daniel, but toward Ava. The sound of paper moving across wood cut through the silence. Gasps followed. Whispers. Confusion. Daniel stared at it. Then at her. Then back at his father. What is this? He asked. Kong didn't look at him. An answer. Ava didn't touch it. Didn't reach for it. She just looked at it. Then back at him. What are you doing? She asked quietly. Kong held her gaze. Making a decision. Daniel stepped forward quickly. No, he said. No, you're not serious. Kong finally turned to him. I am. This is a joke. It is not. The room felt tighter. Smaller. Like everything was closing in. You're giving her what? Daniel's voice cracked slightly. Everything. Kong didn't hesitate. Yes. That word. Echoed. Because it wasn't just unexpected. It was impossible. At least, that's what everyone thought. Daniel let out a disbelieving laugh. She's not even part of this family. No, Kong said.
She isn't.
A pause. Then, that's why she understands its value. Silence.
Deep.
Heavy. Final. Daniel's face changed. Confusion. Anger. Disbelief. You can't just replace me, he said. Kang's expression didn't move. I'm not replacing you. A beat. I'm correcting my mistake. That hit harder than anything else. Because this time, it wasn't about the moment. It was about everything. Daniel stepped back slightly, like the ground under him shifted. You're choosing her over me? Kong looked at him. Really looked. I'm choosing discipline over entitlement. That was it. No anger. No emotion. Just truth. And it broke something.
Completely.
Ava finally spoke. Her voice steady.
Clear.
Why me? The room turned again. Waiting. Kong met her eyes. Because you didn't lose yourself, he said. A pause. When everything around you is trying to make you smaller. That landed.
Deep.
Because it wasn't about what she did. It was about what she didn't do. She didn't bend. Didn't disappear. Didn't accept less. Ava looked down at the document. Then back up. I didn't stay for this, she said. I know. I didn't endure everything for something like this. I know. Then why give it to me? Kong stepped closer. Not imposing. Just present. Because you understand what it costs to keep your dignity. Silence. Ava exhaled slowly. Because now, she understood. This wasn't about money, or power, or inheritance. It was about recognition, validation,
Truth.
She looked at Daniel, standing there,
Lost. Angry.
powerless. And for the first time, she didn't feel hurt. She felt free. Ava reached for the document, lifted it slightly, then placed it back down, untouched. I don't need this to know who I am, she said. The room stilled again. Because that, no one expected. Kong watched her,
Carefully.
then nodded once. Exactly. A small pause. Then, which is why you were the right choice. Ava gave a faint smile. Not proud. Not emotional. Just certain. She stepped back. Away from the table. Away from Daniel. Away from everything. I think I'm done here, she said quietly. No one stopped her. No one spoke. Because there was nothing left to say. She turned and walked. Each step steady. Each step lighter. Because she wasn't leaving empty. She was leaving complete. Outside, the air felt different. Cooler.
Clearer.
Ava exhaled deeply. For the first time in a long time, she felt like herself again. Fully. Unapologetically. Behind her, the world she tried to fit into collapsed without her. And ahead of her was something better. Not because of what she was given, but because of what she kept. Herself. If you made it this far, don't forget to like the video, comment what you would have done in Ava's position, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this, because sometimes the greatest power is knowing when to walk away.